There was a time in my life where I got cheated on, and not too long after, I was about to be blessed by God in a way that my mind couldn't have predicted. And I want to share this with you in hope that if right now you are single and you want to call in your husband and you have faith in God, but at times you struggle to trust in God's plan, if that is you, then this story is really going to support you. So to get into the story, I want to rewind you back to it was 2020 or just at the start of 2021 from my memory. And if you've ever had a time, maybe you can relate to this, where you broke up with an ex-partner and then you got back together and then you broke up and then you got back together. That's what was occurring for me in my previous relationship. And back then, to give you some context, I didn't know God, I wasn't connected to God, and I was very far away from God. And you'll hear some of the things that I was doing to deal with some of the pain in a second. But we were in this back and forth dynamic where we'd get together and then we'd break up, get together and we'd break up. And then there was a time where we got together, and during that time, she cheated. And if you've ever had that happen where trust was broken in a relationship, you could, I'm sure, imagine the feeling that I was feeling in my body. I can't think of any other moment where I felt that amount of pain when I found out. And my heart closed. I didn't want to love again. And I remember during that time how I dealt with a lot of the pain. I would turn to alcohol. I would turn to psychedelics. So I thought that that's what was going to heal me. And I was, doing psychedelics. I would turn to porn. I would turn to alcohol. I would turn to video gaming. I was addicted to video games. I just wanted to escape the pain. I wanted temporary relief from all the pain that I was dealing with, not knowing that there was something even better the entire time. However, I didn't know about God. Well, I knew about God, but I wasn't connected to God. And God was there the entire time. However, I was turning away from Him constantly. However, I do want to share that even though I was dealing with the pain in a lot of unhealthy ways, I was still taking a self-inventory of all the ways that I showed up in that relationship and looking at my part in the dynamic that was played out, right? So it was easy for me to point my finger and be like, she's the reason why I got cheated on, without looking at my part in how this dynamic was co-created. So I started to get my journal out and write down like, okay, what are all of the ways that I don't want to show up in my next relationship moving forward? And I started to write it all down. I started to hire coaches. I started to go to 12-step programs. I started to do all these different things. And at the same time, I was not perfect. And I remember during this time, I was putting out content, sharing about my breakup period, and I was just sharing about all the lessons that I got. And I got a message one day from this beautiful woman. And I didn't know, in the midst of all that pain and just so far away from God possible, I didn't know that Instagram DM was going to turn into a date. And that date would turn into more dates. And that those more dates would then turn into being a boyfriend and girlfriend. And then from being boyfriend and girlfriend, I didn't know in my mind how it would turn out to then us talking about dating and relationships, to then being husband and wife. And I didn't know from being husband and wife that then we would get connected to God and me getting reconnected to God. And I didn't know that from us having this amazing connection with God that we would want to change our entire business that we have built and start to pivot in the direction of just helping people who are God-led create their dream love life through biblical principles. All of that happened because of this pain that I went through when I was cheated on. I didn't know that God had this entire plan laid out. And if that wouldn't have happened, if me being cheated on didn't happen, then all of these blessings that have occurred wouldn't have been created. So I look back at me being cheated on and I'm like, thank you, God. I look back at all the pain that I went through and I'm saying, thank you, God. There is this poem that I love, and I want to read this in hope that if you've already heard this, just see if you can let it land even deeper. But I hope that this just penetrates your soul. The poem says, "One night I dreamed a dream. As I was walking along the beach with my Lord, across the dark sky flashed scenes from my life. For each scene, I noticed 2 sets of footprints in the sand, one belonging to me and one to my Lord. After the scene of my life flashed before me, I looked back at the footprints in the sand. I noticed that at many times along the path of my life, especially at the very lowest and saddest times, there was only one set of footprints. This really troubled me, so I asked the Lord about it. Lord, you said once I decided to follow you, you'd walk with me all the way. But I noticed that during the saddest and most troublesome times of my life, there was only one set of footprints. I don't understand why when I needed you the most, you would leave me. He whispered, my precious child, I love you and will never leave you, never ever during your trials and testings. When you saw only one set of footprints, it was then that I carried you. And I look back at the pain that I was going through. I would look back at the times where I was just purging through emotional pain. And I can look back and just feel so grateful knowing that God was there the entire time. Even when I didn't know God, God knew me. That entire time, He was redirecting me to something even better. Like if someone told me, Matt, in many years to come, in a few years' time, you're actually going to be speaking about the pain that you went through, and that's going to be a testimony for other people who lack faith in God and who are going through a tough time right now, and then you're going to help people get into their dream relationship and help them from a biblical perspective, and you're going to get all these testimonials of other people who have created their dream love life because of the pain that you went through. I would look at them and say, you are crazy. So I am so grateful to God that I am now married to the love of my life. And there is a Bible verse that I love. I think I've said it multiple times over the last few videos, but it's my favorite Bible verse right now during this time of my life. And it says, Proverbs 3, 5 and 6, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all of your ways submit to Him and He will make your path straight. So if I look back during that time, I wasn't connected to God. But if I could go back in time, there were things that I would still do and there were things that I wouldn't do. The things that I would still do, if I knew what I knew now, I would still take that inventory of myself and look at my own part, because yes, I would be praying, and at the same time, I would be doing my part to prepare me for the relationship that I was calling in. So I did so much work on myself during that time. Even though all those times, during that time, I was also falling a lot. I was also doing a lot of work on myself. I was looking at taking responsibility. I was learning about communication. I was learning about how to share my needs. I was learning about self-regulation and co-regulation, how to listen and how to have empathy. And I was looking at all the things that didn't work out, all the fights that used to happen in my previous relationship. I would look at what are the ways that I showed up, so then that way it doesn't show up again. I would continue to do that. And at the same time, I would have, knowing what I know now, I wouldn't be praying to God to take away the pain that I was going through. Instead, I would pray to God to have Him support me with listening to Him even more, to help me surrender to His will and to have Him guide me in the direction that He wants me to go on. I would have leaned on Him. The times where I felt lonely that I would reach out to women, I would have reached out to Him. The time that I wanted to numb my pain through porn, I would have reached out to Him. The time that I went to psychedelics and started to take drugs and started to use alcohol to numb my pain, I would have instead leaned on Him. Instead of trying to follow my own will and try to will myself out of this pain and try to use my own path, I would ask for guidance to guide me on His path and to trust in His path. So those are the things that I would have done differently. And I pray that for anyone right now who is struggling to trust in God's plan, have that verse somewhere visual for you. Proverbs 3, chapter 3, 5, and 6. Have that on your wallpaper. And not just have it on your wallpaper and somewhere visual, but engage in daily prayer on that verse to ask God to support you with trusting God with all your heart, because there are times for sure where I still to this day do not trust fully. It's like, God, I trust in you, and at the same time I kind of want to put my hand on the steering. I want you to take the steering wheel, right? I'm submitting my life to you. And there's still times where I want to grab the steering wheel and try to control it a little bit. And there is another video that we have created that might be supportive to you. So we'll leave that somewhere around this video. Like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next video.